You're now listening to BlerdKast, presented to you by Blerdography. What's going on, everybody? It's me, Mark. Welcome back to another episode of BlerdKast. This is going to be a fun episode, but first, I propose a question to you. What is blerd culture? Now, I asked that kind of ironically because I started my whole channel a couple of years ago with that very question, trying to find the answer. What is blerd culture? Is it a mixture of both nerd culture and Black culture? Is it something more? Is it something less? Well, hopefully today we will find out with my special guest. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, sir?
My name is Roy Mitchell Eavins II. I am a lifelong nerd and the CEO and the executive director of the Urban NerdCon.
Great. So before we get into everything, why don't we talk about the Urban NerdCon? What is it? Why should we go?
Well, the Urban NerdCon is a celebration of all things nerd, but from an African diaspora perspective. You know, we're looking at creators, characters, of course, your favorite mainstream characters that everybody's used to, but we also want to open up and introduce people to some amazing creators who are of African descent who have some great content, because a lot of folks are talking about the fact that they are getting overloaded or oversaturated with your Marvel and your DC stuff. And people don't know that there is a whole lot of stuff out there. And a lot of our vendors and creators don't have opportunities to get to some of the major cons. And so we want to give them a space where they can come in, share their work, and get, you know, folks from all different backgrounds an opportunity to see who they are.
Who are some of the guests? Because I know you've been slowly announcing the guests, and we're about 2 weeks out. Can you talk about some of the guests that are coming?
Yeah. Well, let's kind of trek backwards a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Last week we actually announced Cree Summer is going to be there. Before that, right before her, we announced Phil Lamar is coming out. So that was really exciting. We got Tim and Daphne Reed. You know, folks remember the two of them from all kind of things, you know, 90s and early 2000s TV. With, you know, Tim Reed, of course, with Sister. His wife, Daphne Maxwell Reed, was the second Aunt Viv in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Oh, man. We got Tim Russ, who played Tuvok for Star Trek Voyager, who's going to be there. Phil and Iona Morris, brother and sister combination. They've been in all kind of Star Trek stuff. And Iona actually was the original voice for Storm in the original X-Men cartoon back in the 90s. Man, Amber May, some great voice actors we got coming. Amber May, Gary Anthony Sturgis, Katero Colbert. You know, he plays Killer B. Gary was actually the voice of Ebon in the Static cartoons. Amber does Genshin Impact. She was also Brooklyn Barbie and some of the stuff, man. We've got a boatload of guests, man, that are coming out. And that's one of the things that we're really excited about right now. We know that we are the con that has had we've got about 20 guests that are coming, and no other Black con that we've ever been able to find yet has had that many guests of African descent. So we're really excited about bringing the folks who have been in this space and for us for a while.
That's very fascinating and interesting that you bring that up. One question I do want to ask you, you are the Urban NerdCon, and this will be your first official year in Atlanta. You originally started up in Birmingham, if I'm not correct.
Yep.
Okay. So I want to ask you, since there are other Black or blerd specific cons out there, like BlerdCon, HBCU Con, DreamCon, what will the Urban NerdCon bring to the table outside of the guests that you mentioned?
Well, I think that's one of the things. So I think those seem to be a little bit more specific. I know that when I was listening to the things about DreamCon, they're more focused on anime and gaming. Like those are the things that they do. I think BlerdCon is kind of similar. They do a lot more in the gaming industry and things of that nature. We are what we like to call a fan con. And that just kind of brings all of those different genres together that we're doing, because again, we've had years where our folks just haven't had the opportunity to be celebrated. And so when you talk about horror, you talk about fantasy, you talk about sci-fi, you talk about anime, you talk about gaming, we're going to do all of those things. Your nostalgic TV and, all these different places where you can bring these characters and these people in to engage and work around and have fun with that, we grew up enjoying, but never had the opportunity to meet anywhere in a lot of those places.
That's fascinating. So you brought up that this is a fan con, and with you being in Atlanta's synonymous with like major fan cons. We have a mutual friend of ours, Miss Dana Morgan. Shout out to her. She's a very wonderful and talented and very busy individual. She brought up to me last year during MomoCon actually that MomoCon and a con like Dragon Con, they're big fan cons. They bring the fandom together and celebrate every aspect. Is something for everybody, and this is great that you're bringing this type of aspect of a fan con to Atlanta, which needed a blurred con. I want to say black con, but a blurred con. No, I'll say black con. It needed a black con. It needed some black geekiness in it, with Atlanta being a majority black city, being the Southern Hollywood, the new Hollywood, if you want to call it. We needed something like this. So, like, thank you so much for bringing this from Birmingham to Atlanta and giving us a shot. I know last year was kind of difficult with how the timing of everything worked, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this year seems to be the year that is going to happen, and it's going to be big for you.
Well, yeah. So first we were actually, and I think I may have agreed, we were in Montgomery year one.
Okay, my
2020,
bad.
yeah, 2022 we were in Montgomery. But actually our plan was always to be here in the Atlanta area, the Atlanta metro. That was something that we were working on the entire time. But it's just one of those situations where the folks in Montgomery actually made an offer to us that we, they were just like, hey, we'll just give you all of this stuff. So I was like, okay. So we took it down there, we took the opportunity and that's what it was. So yeah, it's interesting. I went to MomoCon last year and I think we saw each other there. You were definitely at MomoCon. And we were represented, and when I say we, I'll say Blurds. Well, just to kind of keep it easy to do some stuff. But the Blurds were extremely well represented as far as attending the con.
Yes.
And being in attendance and being out there. We were deep. There was no one on that list of guests they had, and they had like 25 folks. There was no one of African descent on any of their guests. And I'm not sure what they were doing as it relates to quote unquote diversity panels and discussions about it in that area. But that's part of the challenge, is that we go to these other events, but it's we don't see, it's kind of what we deal with in life. We go places and we don't see people that look like us.
Right. I agree.
And that's the thing. So
I agree. The one thing I can say to what you just said with MomoCon, yes, last year none of their major guests were African descent. They had a lot of POC representation, but no black people. Just being honest. And even the year before, I think the only one they really had was like Phil Lamar, and Run DMC was there, but he was only there for like one day. Karen Ashley and Nakia Baris were there, but they weren't guests. They were there. Right, they're promoting their con. But
that's one of the things. I'm sorry, one of the things really quick that, and I want to make that distinction because a lot of our celebrities will show up to these events, but they're like vendors. They're not being brought in as guests, and that's what we want to do differently. Yeah,
I agree. That definitely needs to happen, because it gives the appearance that we're just a commodity, like we're just there for like your money. So we're going to bring these certain guests in here so they can make their money. It seems too transactional when, we just want a general experience. We want to experience the same thing everybody else experiences when they go to these type of cons. I go to Dragon Con and MomoCon and AWA every year, and it's always like, all right, find the black people. Where are we? Especially with MomoCon. I mean, not MomoCon, Dragon Con. I've gone to Dragon Con for like almost 20 years now. It's been that find the black people at Dragon Con, and we gotta huddle together. That's why I'm grateful for things like Black Geeks of Dragon Con. and the things that Jabbar Fox have done, and Dana Morgan, she does everything. But yeah, getting back to the whole MomoCon thing, MomoCon has gotten a lot better with its diversity when it comes to inclusion with its panels. They have the BOP panel, that's Karen Ashley's podcast with Hilton George, the owner of BlerdCon, and Christina. They do their panel together. They had the Blerd Over panel. They definitely had a lot more like fan related panels, more specific to blurs and things like that. So they are definitely making a stride to be more diverse in that regard, but the guest thing is definitely an issue. And I don't really have an answer for that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, man. But like I said, that's just part of what we want to do. We want to give them the opportunity to be out and in front and be the features at these places. Right. You know, again, not just showing up as a vendor and you're out there doing your thing. So
now the one thing I will say that MomoCon did, because I mentioned in one of my vlogs that MomoCon is definitely black now. Black cosplay. That is my like affinity and just my pure joy in life right now is just seeing black people geeking out in cosplay. Will the Urban Nerd Con cater to black cosplayers?
Mark, we're the Black Con. Of course we're gonna cater to
I just had to put it out there. I just had to put it out there.
That's one of the things that this is about. Again, all of the genres, all of the things in the fandom, and cosplay is a huge part of that. I mean, like, we've got some really cool guests that are going to come out. You know, CC the Geek's coming out. Venture Bros cosplay is going to be coming out. Demetrius Holt, who has been made famous over the past couple of years with his He-Man cosplay that he's done. Yeah, we've got, you know, Jabbar was scheduled, but I'm not sure if he's still going to make it out. I'm hoping that him and the folks from Cosplay Your Way are still going to be able to come out. But no, we want that. We want all that. Again, this is where the blurs can come and be authentically them across the board. So that's what we want. And definitely cosplay is a huge part of that.
Thank you. Again, I just had to put it out there. You never know. You never know. Some people might be apprehensive, like, oh, they didn't specifically mention cosplay. Maybe it's just a blurred thing and not a cosplay thing. You know, some people, you never know. With all that being said, you're not the first official con in the Atlanta area this year. Atlanta Comic-Con kind of beat you to the punch back in February, but you are essentially the start of the con season, because after you is MomoCon, then Ranger Stop, then another Atlanta Comic-Con, then another con, then Dragon Con. You're essentially kind of first in the lineup of cons. How does that feel?
Well, actually, that was kind of done on purpose. Okay. You know, one of the things, and we can get into it. Last year, there was just a lot of things that were not going in our favor to do it in July, which is when we did our first one in 2022. And what we started realizing is that people were having to make the choice. And, you know, a lot of folks are going to usually go where they're comfortable already and they know things. So putting a new con in the very heart of con season showed us that it was going to be difficult to get people to give us a shot. And get things going. So when we looked at rescheduling, one of the things that we really talked about was actually being out ahead of the con season. So being at the front side of it and getting out before people started really getting into the things that were going on. And so now what that does is that gives us the ability to be able to just jump in and say, hey, we're here first. You know, before you get ready for your big ones, and we'll use the big ones that we say, you know, your dream cons, your Momo cons and the Dragon cons, you got plenty of time to recover from that. Come on in early on in the season, show us a little love and have some fun in the process, you know? So that's what we were looking at.
Right. I think that was a good marketing move right there, to kind of be first and just kind of get out there, because you got to establish yourself in a new city, for one, like you said. Yeah. And you're in like some steep competition. Like, you're right, like doing it in July in Atlanta may not make the biggest sense, because you just got out of MomoCon, and Dragon comes around the corner, Ranger Stop just popped up and it's kind of doing its thing. So yeah, you was in a lot of competition during that slot. So good job, I think. I don't want to say good job, but like, just from someone who goes through all the Atlanta cons, Yes. That was a hard one to make. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. That was a hard one to make right there. So I'm happy that you moved it because now you're right. I need a breather. Gives me time to jump in the game and then get get my mind right for MomoCon and the rest of the con season. So this will be a good one. What's the one thing that you think the Urban Nerd Con will bring to the table that the other Atlanta cons won't have outside of its blackness?
You know what? Just to be blunt, that's going to be what it is. But that in itself is a huge situation because, again, while we want blurs and everybody who, those of us to come in and have fun, we also want everybody else to come out and enjoy themselves. We want Caucasians, we want Asians, we want Hispanics, we want everybody to come out. We want everybody to participate because the other main part about this is highlighting those people who are in this space with us. I have a couple of folks who, and I'm not going to say the individual names, but in talking to some of the booking agents, like you would be surprised that people who've never been even asked to be guests at any cons. And it's crazy to me that, when you think of the level that these people have been at in the industry for all these years, and you're like, what do you mean they've never been guests? And a lot of times, especially for other cultures, a lot of these people were the representation of Black people that they saw anywhere, especially in the sci-fi, the horror, the fantasy genres, and all that kind of stuff. So they know these people. They know who they are when they see them from being some of their favorite characters. I think that's what it's going to bring. I think it's going to bring the true diversity by allowing the fans to see a whole segment of people who normally don't get any kind of shine.
I can agree to that. I can definitely agree to that, but I want to add to it, like, even though I said in spite of his blackness, but like you said, I think because of his blackness, like you said, it's a place where we can come and not have to code switch, because that's a big thing, like in just the geek space in general. In a space where we can not only come and see ourselves, but be around ourselves. Like I can't think of not one convention I've gone to where I have seen 2, 3, 4 African descent guests that were from like major shows. And if they were like side characters, super side characters. Like the BC list Walking Dead characters that just happen to be together. And it shocks me that, like you said, like some of these people have never been asked to be guests before. Why is that?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It is crazy.
So I want to say the biggest thing that your con has to offer that the other cons won't is like not only heart for the Black community, but like the Black voice. We're going to scream out loud, like we want more of this. We want to see more of our guests in this city doing this type of thing. Like that boggles me. Like, you're serious. A lot of the guests that are coming have never been asked to be guests before major cons or minor cons.
It is nuts, man. It is truly nuts that these folks have not been out there. And that's when and what happened is a lot of the, like I said, the booking agents were telling me, and I'm just like, are you serious? And they were like, yeah. I was like, wow.
I mean, again, like, I know like Cree Summer and Phil Lamar, you see them everywhere.
Of course, everywhere.
And I'm happy they're going to be there, but like, I've never seen like Tim Russ and Tim Scott outside of like, Tim Scott outside of like Star Trek conventions.
Anything Star Trek, right. You definitely see Tim at Star Trek stuff, but like you said, outside of that, how much does he get that kind of run?
That's crazy. And Voyager was my favorite season of Star Trek. Like, okay, I'm geeking out already. Because I know what I'm doing at the con. We're gonna talk about that too. But man, that is crazy. So since you are a con owner and you're like the second or third con owner I've been able to interview, let's talk about the logistics of what it takes to run a con and put all this together, because this didn't just happen overnight. It didn't happen out of nowhere. I have seen you in the last year. I've gotten to know you very well. You have been everywhere I've been at and then some. And I'm like, everywhere I look, here you are. And there's Dana, and there's Blurred Over, and there's, oh, okay, just all the Black people in the South coming together to do some greatness. So let's talk about it. Like, because I've always just been curious. What does it take to start a con from scratch? What does it take to get even the guests that you have? Like, you got Phil Lamar. That's a big A-list like person in the blurred space and the nerd space right there.
Yeah, yeah. Man, it takes a lot. It takes tough skin, number one. Let's start there. It takes tough skin. You're going to get a lot of criticisms no matter what, because this is a new venture. And, I think one of the realities is most people don't understand what it takes just to start a new business and, what type of things you have to do to get your business going and get it up off the ground. And then the back end of things that just go into all of it, the planning, the logistics, people just have no idea of it. And it can be rough, and then you're dealing with a very fluctuating economy that makes things even more difficult. In a perfect world, I would tell anybody who wants to do a con, if you want to have more than, say, 5 guests, that you need to try to find a way to start off with, close to at least $70,000 that you got access to make things happen. And that's just the reality of it, because the money will end up being an issue of why things do or don't happen in this process. That's one of the things that you would do, because the money is the hardest part, just because of what upfront things you have to do. And again, I think those are just some of the little pieces that most people don't understand. This isn't a lot of what you have to do has to be taken care of ahead of the con. So before I'm even able to make any money, you got to spend it.
Right.
Like we've got to fly all of our guests in. They've got to get here for the con to happen. We got to fly everybody in. So when you look at the number, like I said, and we're at about 20 guests now. So you can just imagine what that bill looks like.
Right.
So, and then you got your hotel, you got all the stuff. So yeah, it's one of those things, man. The biggest part of it is, just the hardest part is the resources needed to get it done. So everything else is planning. It's just like anything else, but having the resources to make something like this happen, because getting the buy-in is going to be difficult, and it's disappointing to say that part up front, but it is, because like with the line, like I said, nobody can show me a lineup of guests comparable to the one that we have at anybody's con. You can't do it. We've talked about it. I've even talked to our vendors, and in our vendor meetings, I asked them, I'm like, well, because these are folks who go to the major cons. They go to all of the big cons and stuff. And I asked them, I said, well, listen, when you normally go to a con, how many Black vendors do you normally see? And they were just like, man, even Dragon Con and MomoCon, I've seen 40 or so, each at the cons, at the bigger cons, and they said the other one, so it fluctuates between 20, and then some saw 40. Dude, we've got over 80 vendors.
Fantastic.
And all of them, except maybe 5, are people of color. And the majority of that is, people of African descent. And again, these are folks with some great content, great stories that they're doing, just all kind of things, man.
So you talked about a lot of upfront money. I don't even want to ask where you got that from. Don't need to tell me. I'm sure you got a lot of favors and some help along the way. But I do want to ask, since you are running the con, are you doing more delegating tasks, or are you like trying to assign specific things? Or I guess what I'm trying to ask is, you're not doing this alone. You have a team of people behind you. You've met several people during several different cons who are helping you out. What is it like building a team of people who you can trust with, like, your baby, essentially?
Well, that's the part, is finding people that you can trust to get things done and to actually do parts of it. You know what I mean? And so I am somewhat of a control freak, especially because my name is on the line. At the end of the day, when the crap hits the fan or things don't happen, I'm the guy that everybody's going to look at. And so, what I do is I have a system that I use. I actually do event planning. And then I also have another business that I've been using, and that's what's funded the con the last couple of years that we've done it, is my primary business, the Black College Sports Network. We
Okay.
stream HBCU sports. We've been doing that for 25 years. We were the first commercial Black-owned streaming company in the country, and so that's something that we do. So that's where we pull a lot of our resources from. And like you said, man, it's favors, it's like-minded people who believe in what we're doing. That's one of the other things about the Urban Nerd Con that might be a little different from some of the other cons, is that we actually are a C Corp. So people can actually buy equity and invest in our company. So we've had a few people who wanted to invest in it because they believe in the idea and what's going on with it. So yeah, just different things. But no, yeah. I do delegate. I do a lot of the planning, and then I hand certain areas off to different people.
This is gonna be a fun question. What has been your favorite part of this process since you started jumping into the con space? What has been your favorite part of this
Oh,
process?
dude, that's easy. Being able to geek out and meet the celebrity people that I watched on TV who gave me the inspiration to keep into my sci-fi-ness, into my geeking, my blurred, my nerdness, and all that kind of stuff. Meeting these guys and realizing, which we already know, but they're just regular people like everybody else, and they enjoy it, but they really are humbled when they meet people who are truly fans who look like them, because like they'll tell you that they don't see a lot of us, even going out to the events that they do. But that's been I think between that and being able to give young kids and young blurs the opportunity to be in a space where they can be authentically themselves of things that they're interested in and not have to worry about code switching or not feeling some kind of way. So yeah, just my nerddom, and then seeing the young kids really get into what we're doing.
Since I've known you, you have been preaching about getting the young kids, the youth, the next generation into just geek culture in general, just getting them into books, into comics, into
Yep.
cosplaying. You and several other people I've met have just been so adamant about that. And I that's a cause I can get behind because, like, I've learned so much just from like growing up in the 90s and being a product of geekness and geek culture and just like how I am as a person, how I view things, for the good or bad. But again, it's like I don't want to say people like you, but like people in your generation, like my dad. My dad's a black geek. The closeted geeks back in the day where they were made fun of for reading comics and going to the comic book shop and
Yep.
collecting toys and things like that. That was my dad. That's you. And you guys are still there, still leading the forefront, teaching the next generation. And now, like, I have like, little nieces and nephews and little baby cousins. And I'm like, no, we're gonna sit here and watch Power Rangers. You're gonna learn every single name. I'm gonna teach you everything black and geeky that I can. I have been like adamant about doing that to like the next generation just because like it's something like I don't have kids of my own, but like seeing like the youth light up with that same enjoyment that I did over the same stuff that I geeked out when I was their age. That
Yep.
is such a priceless moment to me. I kid you not, like my little nephew, he's like into like Spider-Man and stuff right now. He doesn't even know Peter Parker's name. Miles Morales. That's all he screams is Miles Morales. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
we didn't even
Love it.
have him when I was your age. He's two. So I'm like, man, I'm
Right.
just seeing that is like just amazing. So I think this is going to be big. Like you have brought something special to Atlanta, to like literally Wakanda itself, and I feel like it's going to like become something bigger than even you imagined it would be. Speaking of
I hope
what,
so.
I hope so too. Like I want to see you rival all the other cons. Because all the cons are getting bigger and bigger every year in Atlanta. I want to see you start
Man, it's
rivaling
crazy.
I want to see you start rivaling AWA and MomoCon and Ranger Stop. I want to see lines wrapped around the building every Urban Nerd Con I go.
Bro, if we can, if and that's something that we would love to see. And if we can get, even if we can get to, I mean, hell, if we can get to a quarter of what MomoCon or Dragon Con does, or a quarter or half of what Ranger Stop does, because even Ranger Stop is pulling 30,000 folks, or
Yeah,
the folks are there, and we know that we have the people for that, and that's what we want to do. We've got other things, man, that we're going to be doing with gaming and all of that kind of stuff that's coming up. So we're like I said, dude, we are super excited, and we're ready to rumble, man. We're ready to rumble.
Gotcha. So we've talked about guests. We've talked about obviously everybody can come and cosplay. We talk about the youth. What other events, what other panels, what other things are you planning for NerdCon weekend? That's what it's gonna be dubbed, Urban NerdCon Weekend. The
That's right.
Urban NerdCon
Urban
Weekend.
NerdCon weekend. Yeah. So the panels, of course, we're looking at having all of our special guests will be participating in at least one panel, if not two, that while they'll be there. So you'll have those opportunities to listen to a Cree Summer, to a Phil Lamar, to an Amber May, who's getting in and doing her thing nowadays, and all these other folks. But we also are going to do gaming contests, or tournaments rather. So we have partnered with Purple Fist Entertainment. They're going to be doing a fighting game tournament on Friday and Saturday, Street Fighter and Tekken, the latest editions of both. We're also partnering with the Black Collegiate Gaming Association, where we're going to have an HBCU division of it. That Saturday night, we're going to be doing a competition with NBA 2K and Rocket League. That's the other one that they're going to be playing the games for. Lots of stuff with that. Then we will have our folks from Retro Gaming Lounge back, who were at our first con, open gameplay throughout the day, but they're going to run a couple of tournaments, some minor ones, probably do some fun stuff, Smash Bros, Mario Kart, all that kind of thing, just to get folks engaged. We are actually working on a cosplay competition. We're trying to figure out how exactly we want to do it, because we want to make sure we do it right.
Right.
One of the things that I definitely talked about in our process is that we are going to be, we're unapologetically a Black con. And us being an unapologetic Black con doesn't mean that we're anti anyone else, first off. But we are going to celebrate us first.
Right.
And so, we're working out the details of how our cosplay competitions are going to work, and all of those kind of things. So, we're pulling that together and just having some fun with it. But we're definitely looking forward to all of that.
What are you most looking forward to during the Urban NerdCon weekend?
Just the interaction, man. I want to see the fans. I want to see fans interact with celebrities. I want to see fans interact with each other. I want to see us in a safe space. And when I say that, not even just the different genres, but the different generations. And I think that's another thing that's going to be unique to us, is that we're cross-generational. One of our guests was the first Black Bond woman. She played in Diamonds Are Forever with Sean Connery. It's Miss Trina Parks. She was also an Alvin Ailey dancer. It's like we're bringing that level of people from generations past, that we can celebrate. And then what that's going to also do is give a lot of the younger blerds an opportunity to see the history of these people that they never knew existed. Because I'm going to be willing to bet you probably 90% of the people who will go to a con would tell you that Grace Jones was the first Black Bond woman. And that's in my generation. Right. We get to your generation, they're going to probably think Halle Berry.
Right.
They just because of who they are, not knowing that there were people before them, and that they did do things. So I just want to see the interaction, man. I want to see the love. I want to see us being as blurred and as nerd as we can be in a comfortable space, and just everybody just like, yo, this is it. I want people to leave with that feeling.
I'm 100% sure it's gonna be more than that. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be more than that. Now, let me ask you: are you gonna be going around during the con, like facilitating everybody, make sure everybody's comfortable, or you got like your nice Geek Q Hefner jacket and like a little pipe you can walk around and stand and watch?
Nah, I'll be working enjoying, as I like to call it, work enjoying. As I'll go through, I will be around the con. People will see me. I'm not going to be held up in some space or anything. I will be all over everything, wanting to make sure that everything is going right. If people are needing me for anything, but we'll have, like I said, the areas will have somebody who's in charge of them. But no, I'm going to be moving around. I'm going to be definitely moving around.
Okay, cool. So, what I want to ask you, and what I'm most curious about myself, because it involves me, sorry to be so vain, but um, you're offering press outlets to come in and cover your con as press, which is a very interesting move because that's a lot of free advertisement in that. But I want to know, what is the press experience going to be like? What can people like me and other press outlets who are coming to your con expecting how are you handling the press circuit situation?
So one of the things that we're doing, so okay, well, let me start here first. The
Okay.
first thing is, that we're doing with the press is that we're, because we are new con and we again need every dollar that we can get. We're not asking press to buy a weekend badge for an adult, which is what they normally would do, which are right now they're $80 $60 for the individual, or you can get a weekend BOGO for $80 for two people. All we're asking media and press to do is donate a young nerd badge for every adult that's on their team that wants to come in and do something. And what we're going to do is we'll have an area for press to be able to set up for, of course, photos and things of that nature. But we're also giving folks the opportunity to broadcast live or stream live from the con in a particular space that we'll have set up for
Okay.
people, and being able to get that. And, and that'll be somewhere in the midst of everything so that you guys can get a look and see all the stuff that's going on, and just make it really cool for people to see and engage with what's happening, and just being able to do that. And of course, being able to have access to some of the celebrities. Of course, everybody's not going to have the same availability. Some of them are going to be limited, but most of our celebrities are already saying they're going to be more than happy to go around, do interviews and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah,
Okay.
you'll have that access to be around and engage and talk at different things and stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
So let me ask you, so how are you doing the interviews for the press outlets? Is it more like a media room and we're all in there around Robin style, or is it we apply for exclusives like how AWA does?
Yeah.
How does that
So we won't really probably have very many exclusives for the general media. It'll more than likely be, like I said, the round robin, especially with the larger guests.
work?
We want
Okay.
to get them into a room and say, hey, we'll have the press outlets be able to come in, just so everybody will at least have a chance to kind of talk to those guys and stuff like that. And then, like I said, though, a lot of our other guests are like, no, they're down to do the interviews. They're down to do one-on-ones. And we'll set that up. We are considering putting together a mini press row
Okay.
once we find out how many or who all's decided that they wanted to come through. And if we got enough space left over, we'll do that. And then what that'll do is that'll give the celebrities the opportunity to kind of just bounce from one to the other. They may want to do that, the first day there. They may want to do it their last day, whatever, Friday or Sunday. Of course, people, most people are planning on being extremely busy on Saturday. So,
Right.
but most of the interview stuff is going to happen Friday and Saturday, or Friday and Sunday. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. So we're still working on a couple of options to again try to make it the best that it can be for everybody.
Okay, that actually sounds like a pretty good deal. Because I've been in some press situations that have not been so ideal. And it broke my heart. But I think this is gonna work out pretty well for everybody involved. And I know who you have involved helping you out with press and things like that. So I know you got a good crew of volunteers and a good crew of press outlet people there to help you and to just promote the con in the most positive light possible, give great questions and great interviews to the guests, and anyone willing to be in front of our cameras. So this is going to be a fun weekend. So I know we just jumped into the deep end of what the Urban Nerd Con is and everything that you're going to do, and we forgot to talk about you. Like, what are you into? What are some of your favorite hobbies? What is your nerd story?
Man, unfortunately, I work a lot. So between my sports stuff and then the other things that I do, I don't have a lot of time, but I am big into sci-fi. I like fantasy, but I like epic battles. I like big battles. I like espionage type stuff that I'm into. So I will get into shows like that. Um, just I think the most recent thing that I watched, um, oh gosh, it was on Prime. No, I'm sorry. I think it's on Hulu. I don't remember which one of the services it was on. And I can't even remember the name now, but you know, and I'll go backwards. But I rewatched 24. I rewatched season 7 of 24 again. You know, I just finished all of the Blacklist finally, and you know, listen, I'm old school, so of course I'm a Star Wars guy, Star Trek guy. That's why we're heavy with the Star Trek folks coming into the con and people with that. That's definitely a big thing for me with that. I
Okay.
think next year I definitely want to lean into some of the Battlestar Galactica people because I really enjoyed the Battlestar Galactica stuff and getting in and doing some different things. But you know, I mean, you know, like everybody else, I like the Marvel stuff. I like the Marvel and DC movies. Of course, I think DC could do a whole lot better than what they do with their material.
No comment. I'm gonna leave that alone.
Right. But yeah, man, it's just your normal stuff right now. I think I'm really into it because the beauty for a nerd my age is that all this stuff that we grew up with, seeing the most cheesy movies ever, we're finally getting an opportunity now to see some movies that, you know, theoretically could look like it's actually happening in real life. You know, and the special effects are so much better than what they used to be.
Okay, I'm not even trying to joke or when I say this, but I really want to ask you because I know you like Star Trek. How do you feel about the J.J. Abrams stylized Star Trek stories they're telling now with Discovery and Bold New Worlds and Picard and the movies versus
Oh,
the TV shows that I said we grew up to watching like Voyager and Next Generation things like that.
oh, dude, the new Star Wars stuff is, I mean, Star Trek stuff is amazing. I think they have gotten the formula right when you talk about you have your source material, but then you can do timelines. You can do different timelines. You can do all these different things and not destroy what you've created in the beginning. I think too many times what we're doing, and I think it's part of the challenge that DC was having, even with a lot of the stuff, to use them as an example, is that there was no connection and you just had all these random things out there, you know?
Mm.
And so it's like people are like, okay, so it's not connected to this, it's completely different this. But man, the Star Trek, I love the Chris Pratt and the not Chris Pratt, Chris Pine and the Zoe and the Zachary Quinto, that new crew of the Enterprise is great. You know, I love that. I thought that was a great way for them to do that with that divergent timeline of, you know, his dad being killed, him not having Kirk not having his dad and all that kind of stuff. And they've brought in other pieces, but they've stayed true to the source material. And then the Discovery stuff, man, I think Discovery might be the linchpin that nobody, as much as people like it, I don't think people are going to realize the impact that Discovery is eventually going to have on the Star Trek fandom. I believe because what they did, that they've opened up two completely different stories. Because I guess the Discovery, the main continuity of the Discovery timeline stays in line with whatever the original stuff was,
Right.
because it was Spock going, you know, it comes from Captain Pike. You got Captain Pike with the Strange New Worlds now. They're keeping his fate of what we knew happened to him going forward, which will then lead to the Kirk slash Spock Star Trek that we knew.
Right.
But then they go 900 years into the future, and they use these seasons of Discovery to set up the reformation of the Federation and all that. I mean, dude, there is so much that they can do with that, and I think the Discovery is going to be the next nexus point. To use a pun intentionally, it will be the next nexus point for the Star Trek continuity, and I think it is going to be amazing.
I 1000% absolutely agree with you there. I had no idea how much I would not only enjoy Star Trek Discovery, but how
Yeah,
important it would be not only to like Star Trek fans. Because like love it or hate it, you can't ignore Star Trek Discovery and what is done in its seasons and the stories it's tell. Like you said, it opens up two new avenues. You have the future timeline, you have the what we know, blase blase. And then they've explored so many ideas. Michael Burnham. If Janeway was not my favorite captain, I swear to God, Michael Burnham would have to be my favorite captain. But they're like almost tied for neck and neck right now. And not only the importance that Star Trek Discovery has to Star Trek fans, but how important it is to the Black community in itself, with it portraying a Black female actress as a captain. They have more African American cast members,
Yep.
British,
More
European,
prominent ones.
all prominent ones. There you go.
Yep.
I'm still trying to figure out what machine is doing their hair in space, because I am flabbergasted of who's doing micro braids and all these like hairstyles in space in the future. Whatever. That's a different rant. So Star Trek Discovery has a very special place in my heart. I'm so happy you mentioned that. Sorry, we just had a shared geeked out moment right there. Moving on, I didn't mean that was a tangent question, by the way. So we talked about let's talk about the Black nerd community, the blerd community, the urban nerd community, as you
Okay.
will. Let's talk about that for a little bit before we go. We mentioned early in the podcast that the Urban Nerd Con is bringing something special to the city of Atlanta, something that is desperately needed in the city of Atlanta. My question to you is, what is the blerd community specifically, in your opinion? I know it's kind of a weird question to kind of break down and ask.
It's all of that, but so that's why we're a fan con, because it's all of it. It's people who like horror. It's people who like fantasy. It's people who like sci-fi. It's people who, who like cosplay, who like gaming. We're out there. We've always been there. That's the big key. We've always been a part of this, but we've either been marginalized. Well, let's go down the list. In horror, we're always the first one to die.
Always.
In space, there's either one Black person or one race that everybody looks at and says, okay, well, they're Black people.
Yeah.
When you look at sci-fi, you don't see, again, another thing, a lot of Black people in space. And we'll use Star Trek, we'll use Star Wars when you talk about back in the day. Lando Calrissian, for a long time, we thought that Lando Calrissian was the only Black guy in space, and we thought Uhura was the only Black woman in space.
True.
Because that's all you saw. And so those types of things, we're there. We've always been there. We've always been engaged in the process, is the thing, is what it is to me. And I think that's what we're about now, is showing that. That's where we are. We got to be there to show that. That's what we're looking for and what we're looking to do.
Gotcha. So with that said, let me ask you this: how important is representation? How important is it that we as African Americans see ourselves in the fandoms that we enjoy watching just naturally, regardless of what it is?
So I think the representation is important. I mean, that's literally one of the primary reasons that we're doing this. But I guess my old philosophy, this is one of the philosophies that I have about things. I'm not going to come to your house and tell you how to fix your house to make me comfortable. I'm just going to build my own house. And that's what the Urban Nerd Con is. The Urban Nerd Con is the fandom house for blerds all across the spectrum. Whatever it is that you like, you can come in and we're gonna do it. If we get enough people say, hey, we wanna see this at the Urban Nerd Con. All right, that's what we'll work on. We want to be that. I don't think we shouldn't have to force MomoCon or Dragon Con to do things for us. We shouldn't have to continually ask for things to make us feel comfortable in their space. Because the best way to get a business to operate the way that they should is to take your dollars away from them.
Right.
That's what makes them different, because the philosophy is now, well, you're still coming already, so we're just going to keep doing this and giving you what we can give you until we can't get away with it anymore. And then once that happens,
then they start changing the tune.
Then they start paying attention.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So, and I'm sure you've gotten this already, because I know how the internet works and I know how people are in the year of our Lord 2024. I'm gonna ask you this question. How have you been handling the naysayers, the people who have come at you with you're excluding them, you're building a space that's racist towards certain other groups of people in that matter? Because I'm pretty sure that has happened.
Actually, it hasn't.
Really?
And I'd love for that conversation to come because again, the way I started this off, me being unapologetically and pro-black doesn't make me anti anyone else. Now, if you feel that way, that's something in you that they need to deal with
Right.
because we're not. Like I said, we want everybody to show up. We're not discriminating. Listen, we've got people who are partner guests. Brent Hillsman, who's one of the cosplayers. Brent's a white guy. He's coming out. You know, I've got multiple people who are of other races who are coming out and who are not just coming out, but who are a part of what we're doing with the con. So yeah, I can honestly say is that we have not had that conversation with anyone, and we're ready. I'm ready for that conversation because then I'll say that means what that tells me is that you really haven't actually paid attention to anything that we've said. But yeah, no, we're glad to say that we have not had that as an issue.
Gotcha. That is
Now we
that's
have had
wonderful.
naysayers,
Okay.
just being naysayers. Why are you doing this? Whoa, why do we need a black con and this here? And it's funny to hear somebody say, why do we need a black con, who are the same people asking Dragon Con to do more black stuff.
Right.
So
Right. Trust me, I'm aware. Dragon Con. Oh my God, I could tell you stories, but I won't because this isn't the place or the time for it. Now, you mentioned you kind of foreshadowed a little bit, so I want to just ask you, you in your head, I'm assuming you've already started planning for next year's con. So what do you want to do different for next year's con that you won't have this year?
you know what, man? I don't even want to talk about it because we do have a few things that we are going to do next year that we wanted to do this year, but I decided to put back on hold to just get a couple of more things in place because I want to get this event under us and get it out of the way.
Right.
You know, I want to get it laid down and everything, and then we're gonna come back. But one of the things that, and we'll talk, I can mention it because we've been talking about it, is that we're gonna celebrate our folks who have been in the trenches, who have been in these areas, who worked at Marvel, who've worked at DC, who've worked on our favorite games, who've worked on our favorite cartoons. You know, put our some most iconic characters, either words or pictures, on paper for us in these books. We're going to celebrate those folks with our own set of awards.
I really like that. I
Yeah.
really like that. That is dope. That is so dope.
Yeah.
That is so dope. So there's I don't want to say a stigma, but there's a thing in the con space, in the event planning space for conventions, in particular, the 5 year lifespan. You got to make it 5 years within the con space before you can start saying you like been a success or you can kind of average out your growth. Let me ask you, what is your 5 year plan? Now that you're in Atlanta, this will be your first official year in Atlanta. What is your 5 year growth plan? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years?
You know, again, if we can get to a quarter of what a Momo or a Dragon Con has done, I would be happy. We anticipate being around because we're in this for the long haul. We're in this to make sure that this event happens every year. Um, and it's gonna be, at worst, the level that we're doing it at this year is what you can be used to. We may not have as many guests every year, but you know, we're our goal, yeah, it is to be the con with the most black guests. So you can look for a minimum of 10 every year that we do this. And then just growing the engagement for people, the opportunities for folks to come out and do different things to have fun. But yeah, we're committed to it for the long haul. So we, you know, because we're talking about 30-year or 20-year anniversaries. Those, you know, those are the first set of goals that we have, being able to do that. So 5 years means that we're doing what we're trying to do. We're recreating that safe space, that fun place, fun space, you know, that welcoming space for blurs to come and say, you know what, I definitely want to come and hang out at this thing.
Gotcha. I think once the doors open that Friday this year, there will be no closing those doors for you ever again in Atlanta. Not only you'll be able to come back every year, but people will be demanding you come back to do this con every year because of how
That's the
important
hope.
it is.
Yeah.
So I'm if you can't tell, I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm going to be doing press. I think I still have a panel I'll be doing, so I need to go work on that. I have it together,
Yeah.
so there's no big deal. Plus I'm planning on doing interviews and a bunch of other stuff. I'm excited. Personally, like I told you myself when I first met you, like bringing a black con to Atlanta is like that next to Ranger Stop and Pop coming to Atlanta, I think was the only other time I literally jumped for joy for like a convention. Like I mean, it's a convention. There's a bunch of nerds spending money they shouldn't spend. But like when you said Black Con Atlanta, I was like, makes sense, makes too much sense. Why haven't we had it already for the last 10 years? Makes no excuse why we don't have it. So just thank you again for doing this and putting your name on the line and bringing so many wonderful people together, both the volunteers and also the guests. This is going to be amazing. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you at on the internet?
All right. Well, you can find us online at theurbannerdcon.net. Again, theurbannerdcon.net.
This cool.
And every social media is the Urban Nerdcon. So you can find us there. It's real easy to get us there. All the tickets are there. Again, like I said, you can donate Young Nerd badges. We donate those to kids who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to come to the con. And out of every $25 Young Nerd badge that's donated, the kid gets $10 in what we call con bucks to actually spend at the event so that no kid leaves it out having their imagination sparked. And so those are served like real dollars. They go to the vendors and then that money is turned back over to the vendors. That is not something that we're keeping as the con. Um, but yeah, the urbannerdcon.net, man, go grab it. Everything is there that you need. We are here. We're what is this, 18 days away? Oof.
Yeah, 18 days away. And I'm gonna just piggyback off what you just said. I think that's so important and like unique in itself that you're doing that. You're donating $10 to everyone that has a young nerd badge, so they can create a memory and want to come back and keep doing this. That's gonna be so important for the future of
Yeah.
Black nerds everywhere.
Yep, that's it, man.
That's good. But thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on. Uh, Let me just do my spiel. Sorry, I had to memorize it off the top of my head. But thank you, everybody. This has been BlerdKast. I'd like to thank my guest, Mr. Roy of the Urban NerdCon. Thank you so much for coming out. Can't wait to see you in 18 days. You're gonna get sick of me. Trust me, you're gonna get sick of me. You already know. We don't tangle together before. So yeah. But for everybody else. This has been BlerdKast. You can find me on YouTube at Blerdography, on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, X, Twitter, same thing. And you can find BlerdKast everywhere you listen to your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Music, Google Music, Google Podcasts, which no longer is a thing. I'm gonna have to update the script again. And coming soon. Hopefully I can get to these other things. I'm gonna keep that a secret for now. But join me next week where we'll yet again be talking about the MCU problem because it has several problems it needs to address. But thank you guys.